Shalom, Hebrews. Shalom, Hebrews. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. Okay, Hebrews. I want to talk about what happened to the Hebrews that broke the covenant during the Babylonian wars. During the Babylonian era, when we was having trouble with the Babylonians, when we said that we don't want to do the covenant no more, and that we through with the covenant, and that we want to do Egyptian religion, and we was driven off the land into Africa, and we went into Africa by way of Egypt. Okay, what happened to them Hebrews that went into Africa? It's got to be some sign of them. It's got to be some history somewhere. Now check this out. The people who recorded Western history, because we stopped doing history when we said that we wanted to go into Africa to do the Egyptian religion, we stopped recording world history, which is what the biblical history is. You know, that's what the Tanakh is. It's world history. We kept up with all the tribes and the nations and everybody that was kind of like descended from Adam, and then from the all the way down to Prophet Noah, and you know, his descendants, his sons and their descendants. You know, that what made world history, and we kept up with that. But when we said that we was gonna go into Africa to do the Egyptian religion, then you know, we stopped recording our history. We stopped recording our history. And I can show in the Tanakh during the Babylonian wars that our main scribes, the people that kept up with the history, were put to death by the Babylonians. Now this the thing, Hebrews. This is real tricky. Now I got a lot of videos, and you Hebrews should, you know, the Hebrews that's been studying with me, you know, understand, you know, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. The Hebrews that's been studying with the Israelite Brotherhood and been watching the videos and been staying tuned with, you know, what I've been putting down, they understand who the Babylonian scribes is. You know, okay, Hebrews, you know, during the Assyrian troubles, the Assyrian problem, something real slick and sneaky was put down on us. You know, first of all, we was on Egyptian religion, you know, going all the way back to Jeroboam times, from when Solomon chased Jeroboam into Egypt. You know, and this is what I want to show, because this is a trip now, and you can kind of see this in history easy. But like I say, the Babylonian scribes, the people who's responsible for world history after we abandoned it, the Sephardi Jews, the Sephardi's, the Sephardims, after we went into Africa and abandoned our heritage to them and stopped writing, they didn't follow us into Africa to record the things that we was doing. And that, you know, they started, you know, trying to keep up with us and get back in contact with us after we ran into Africa during the Greek times. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna show you, Hebrews, something that that we Hebrews, after we ran into Africa to do the Egyptian religion and left our heritage to the Babylonian scribes that didn't record our history, something had to happen to us, you know, in Africa. You know what I'm saying? We had to be somebody there, and we went into Africa in large numbers. And it's a known fact that Nebuchadnezzar conquered Egypt too. So Nebuchadnezzar, after they chased us into Africa, after they burnt the temple down, and then chased us into Africa during the Babylonian wars, and Nebuchadnezzar came to Egypt, he didn't capture anybody. He didn't capture no Hebrews or deport no Hebrews to Africa. And then it's a known fact that after the Babylonian wars, after the Babylonians were defeated, that the Hebrews never came out of Africa to be reunited with the exiles from Africa. That no Hebrews came out of Africa to be reunited with them Hebrews. You know, we got the history of Prophet Ezra, Haggai, Zechariah, the sister Esther, Nehemiah, and Malachi. And it's a fact that the Hebrews that ran into Africa didn't come back out to be reunited with them. And this is what I want to show, is that when we went into Africa, how about our ancestors were affiliated with, you know, the Egyptians from the west side of the Nile, what I call the West Africans. You see what I'm saying? And how it's a difference. You know, it's two type of Egyptians. You know what I'm saying? It's two type of Egyptians. You know what I'm saying? It's the Nubian, Ethiopian, Sudan stock of Egyptians that ran Upper Egypt, and then there's like a brown skinned like Egyptians that kind of look like us. You know, if you was to look at some of them images, and I'm gonna show some of them, they look just like us. And then they ran Lower Egypt, and then I could prove in a Tanakh that, you know, during the time of Prophet Joseph sojourned in Egypt, when the slick Pharaoh gave Joseph the priest of On daughter, Asenath, and how that they was from the Meshwesh tribes, the people from the west side of the Nile that controlled Lower Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And they control Heliopolis. Heliopolis is where the priest of On was, and they even got one of the obelisks. That they got one of the obelisks here that they brung from there. You know, it was erected during our slavery time in Egypt. You know, when we went into bondage, when a new king come on that didn't know Joseph. You know, it was a new king that come on that didn't know Joseph. And then that's going to be the kings, the Nubian, Ethiopian, Sudan stock of Egyptians from the east side of the Nile, or from Upper Egypt, what they would call, you know, by the Sudan. You see, this is Upper Egypt going, you know, down. And look, if you look at the borders that you have today in Africa, you know, all these borders and boundary lines that define these different nations in Africa. How about that they was all set up at the League of Nations, and that these borders didn't exist back in the BC days, or in the early AD days, and that they, you know, around about the 18th century, you know, they conquered Egypt, the League of Nations, and then they divided the whole Africa up. So the Egyptian borders that you see today is not the same as in the past, and how the Egyptian borders went all the way into Egypt. You know, I'm going to show that it's baby pyramids in Egypt. And then, you know how we Hebrews say, we build the pyramids, we build the pyramids. We actually did build some pyramids, some baby pyramids in the Sahara. And we were kin to the Meshwesh tribes from Joseph marriage to Asenath, the priest of On daughter, and how that they had two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And I can show how the tribe of Ephraim was affiliated with the Egyptians and so forth, and how the tribe of Ephraim did trade with the Egyptians and kicked it with the Egyptians. And then I can show us a prophecy from Prophet Isaiah that showed that how we will have dealings with the Egyptians and how it will be beneficial, you know, during that time. And it's called the satire history of Egypt, when the Assyrians invaded Egypt and placed the Meshwesh tribes on the throne. You see what I'm saying? Now they was cool, but they was our enemies too, because they was Egyptians, and then they destroyed us. You see what I'm saying? And then our affiliation go back with them gonna start when Joseph was given Asenath on the slick side. See, the priest of On is the priest of a real serious religious system. And how about when Joseph answered Pharaoh's dreams, and Pharaoh seen that it was satisfactory, and even probably confirmed through his priests that, hey, what this man saying is real. You know, this is gonna happen. And how we Hebrews saved Egypt, them African Hamites. Well, them Hamites knew that we worship a different God than them, and that they had to come across the promised land. And how Pharaoh gonna know that we was in the promised land, going all the way back to when Prophet Abraham went to Egypt. And then, you know, he didn't tell them Egyptians that, you know, our mother Sarah was his wife, and he said that that was his sister, and Pharaoh snatched her up. You know what I'm saying? Because she gonna be looking, you know, real fine. You know what I'm saying? For the simple fact that she ain't gonna look all, you know what I'm saying, like them Nubians. She gonna have that cream color. You know what I'm saying? And these are the, you know, two different type of Egyptians. You know, you got the ones from Lower Egypt gonna be pitch dark black. You know what I'm saying? Which ain't nothing wrong with that. The more pigmentation, the better. You know what I'm saying? But then it was a different stock of Egyptians, you know what I'm saying, in Upper Egypt that had the cream color. You see what I'm saying? That cream brown color like we have now today. That's going to be the sign of the Shemites. You know what I'm saying? Shem going to have a cream brown skin, you know what I'm saying, color that's real, you know what I'm saying, fine. You know what I'm saying? A real good brownish color. You know what I'm saying? And then he ain't too real black, and he sure ain't too light. You know what I'm saying? Well, them gonna be the ones from Lower Egypt. Okay, when Joseph answered Pharaoh's dream, you know what I'm saying, and then Pharaoh peeped that, you know what I'm saying, that we Hebrews was connected to the Creator, he gonna give Joseph Asenath, the priest of On daughter, and that was a bad thing. That wasn't no good thing. All right, they got us affiliated and connected with the Meshwesh tribes. You know, they control Egypt, you know, during Joseph time. And then, like I say, that Pharaoh come on that didn't know Joseph, gonna be the ones from Upper Egypt, the Nubian stock that come on that enslaved us and, you know, made us build, you know, the brick cities and so forth. Okay, the ones that Joseph mixed up with, that they would exodus with us, the Meshwesh tribes, you know, would be, you know, kin to, you know, the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh. When they exodus with us, you know, they caused us all kind of trouble. You know, they was cattle worshipers, you know what I'm saying, and we worship cattle with them. All right, Hebrews, this what I want to show, Hebrews, is how that you know, ain't nobody ever said in history what happened to the Hebrews that went into Africa during the Babylonian times. You know what I'm saying? What happened to them Hebrews that abandoned the covenant during the Babylonian wars, that went into Africa to stay? What happens to them? Is it any sign of them anywhere? And yes, it is. And this is the history and sign of our ancestors in Africa. And this is what I want you to keep in mind, is that, you know, it wasn't just only us, because it was a remnant of the Assyrians, you know, because, you know, they placed the Meshwesh tribes on the throne when they invaded and took the power from the Nubians, you know what I'm saying, and they even kidnapped some of them Nubians. You know, the Syrians were having a hard time with them folks coming up out the Caucasus Mountain. You know, Syria was having a hard time with them folks was coming out the Caucasus Mountain. I already explained in the other videos how that they let them Scythians and them folks start come kicking it into Syria. And then the people that start came kicking it in Assyria, them Caucasians from the mountains, is how they took Assyria over. You see what I'm saying? They started kicking it in Assyria and started getting a little education, and then how they changed on the Assyrians and tore the Syrians' mouth out. You know what I'm saying? The Syrians never got a chance to get back on their feet when they started dealing with them Scythians and let them folks in their nation. You know what I'm saying? And all that was prophesized, you know, because, you know, they was acting wicked. And I show in history how the prophet Jonah was sent to Nineveh to try to get them to stop being wicked and evil. And how the prophet Jonah was sent there, and how the Scythians was lodged in Assyria. You know what I'm saying? This is the Syrian Empire. And if you see right here, the Syrian Empire went all the way into Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Around about 671 BC, they took the whole Egypt over. And then I can establish the history that the Assyrian captivity wasn't what history portrayed. Like I say, our history fell into the hands of the Babylonian scribes. And the Babylonian scribes been telling lies the whole time about the Israelite history and the Hamites in Africa, because they knew that we was connected to them, and how they didn't want the truth to come out, because then it would expose that they ain't Hebrews. You see what I'm saying? So the whole history as you know it about the Assyrian captivity, about the Hebrews, about the Babylonian wars, and about our enslavement coming from Africa is all wrong and incorrect in the history books that are wrote. You know, some of these Hebrew scholars went to these European schools and then got educated in their lies, and then they just regurgitate the same lies. Well, here goes some new history. We ain't regurgitating, you know what I'm saying? We ain't regurgitating them lies. And it's the Israelite Brotherhood that show you that we are the Hebrews, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. You see what I'm saying? And I'm showing you history that the enemies ain't gonna be in agree with, because they know that it's true. You see what I'm saying? And you can see the truth yourself because I'm laying it out. All right, the Assyrians were having trouble with these folks here, and like I said, I got videos showing how them folks, you know, up under them underground cities and them underground caves and stuff, the Cain descendants, you know, sucked Japhet and them up underground and mixed with them, and then all Japhet descendants lost their pigmentation fooling with the Cain descendants. And then how did them evil wicked folks up underground start coming up and start kicking it with the Assyrians. You know, they even mixed with some of the Syrians. And then I think during the time of when the Assyrians was forced to marry one of those Paragons and them folks from Uatar, them Scythian Ashkenazi folks, is when that them Sepharvims was placed in Samaria in 722 BC, because it's a known fact that Assyria and Babylon have an on and off relation, and how the Assyrians would conquer Babylon and subdue them people. And then I got in the other videos how those Scythians, you know, because the people who controlled Babylon were Amorites. You know, Amorites that had lost their pigmentation from mixing with them same Hittite folks. You know, this is what the Hittites was, and they lived up underground. They didn't have no pigmentation. All these folks up here in pink, and how that they started kicking it in Assyria and tore Assyria mouth out. But before then, you know, the Amorites, you know, before we come out of Egypt and start, you know, getting up with them folks and trying to take the land from them, they had a civilization that go all the way from the Nile all the way to the whole Mesopotamia. You know what I'm saying? And how that them folks, you know, from Paraguay and the Scythians would sneak on around the Zagros mountain, and how that they were strengthening them Amorites. And then that's who the Assyrians was having conflict with, and how the Assyrians would come and get they kindreds, the Hamites, you know what I'm saying, and them Libyans. And this is what I want to show, how the Libyans were connected to the Assyrian Empire, and how the Libyans were none other than the Meshwesh tribes. Yeah, some white folks had sailed, you know what I'm saying, and come from these parts, the Paragons, and you know what I'm saying, they sailed desperate for civilization, and how that we was, you know, didn't flex on them real hard, and how we just didn't let a whole bunch of them in, but a few of them would come in and kick it with us, and then this is what they would look like. You see what I'm saying? That's like today, man. Right now today, in the hip hop culture, you got white folks that dress just like black folks. We create the style and what's the culture with the clothes, and then you turn around and got white folks dressing just like how we dress. You know what I'm saying? Wear the hats just like how we wear them. Wear the shoes that we say is popular. You know, got that hip hop look. You know what I'm saying? Well, it's the same way in the past. You know, you had some white folks that was sailed into Libya area, you know what I'm saying, around them parts, because sometimes, the majority of the time, the Nubian East African Sudan stock would control the whole Egypt. You know what I'm saying? They would control the whole Egypt, and then them folks couldn't sail off into Egypt. They'll be taken as prisoners. But then when we, you know what I'm saying, the Meshwesh tribes come on, they'll be a little more lenient. You know what I'm saying? And you know, they was a little more cool, you know, and they would, you know, wouldn't dog them folks out. And then that's how they look right there. You know what I'm saying? And them white folks done snuck in and then start dressing like the people do after they done learned some civilization. Well, that's the same thing happened in Assyria. During Assyrian time is when the Scythians, Ashkenazi and them, Bertuda and them, I got some videos showing how they come up out the Caucasus Mountain and from Haiti, from up underground, and start kicking it in Assyria. And then how they got so deep, and that the Assyrians tried to push him out. And look, during the time that they got deep, the prophet Jonah had went there. You know, the prophet Jonah went there and told them, Assyrians, hey, you know, and them Assyrians believed in the Creator, because they didn't do nothing to prophet Jonah when he went to Nineveh and told them, hey, y'all, it's finna be curtains for y'all. You know what I'm saying? And it's finna be over with. You know, and the tribe of Ephraim kicked it with the Assyrians. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to show all this. But when the prophet Jonah went there and said, hey, y'all, it's finna be over with, them Assyrians had them no pigmented peoples in there, the people that didn't have pigmentation, that was from underground and living in them caves in the Caucasus Mountain, how the Syrians let them kick it, and then they start robbing and terrorizing everybody. You know what I'm saying? Because them Scythians was hungry, nasty, and then they told them Assyrians, let's go rob. And then they went and robbed the Medians, and they're just terrorizing. And then how the Assyrians tried to get them folks up out of there, and tried to, because they know that if you be wicked and evil like that, that you ain't got long as a civilization. And then how they tried to get them folks up out of there, and then they couldn't, so then they came and got us. You know what I'm saying? We was already kicking it in Assyria. You know what I'm saying? And then the Libyans, them folks was kicking it. The Meshwesh folks was kicking it in Assyria, and they made up the strength and the army of the Assyrian Empire. But it started got to be so bad that that them folks was driven out during the last part, and then that's gonna be when that Nubian Ethiopian stock had control of the whole Egypt, and then the Assyrians would come take that power from them and kidnap them, and then put the Meshwesh tribes back on the throne, and then we would go into Egypt, and then one of those Meshwesh tribes, pharaohs, would kill King Josiah, the Hebrew king that tried to save us from being caught up with all them folks that eventually enslaved us, because we ran into Africa to kick it with them. All right, let's go from the beginning. Let's show this how Joseph was given Asenath. And I told you how Joseph answered Pharaoh's dreams and how Pharaoh, you know what I'm saying, gave him Asenath being slick. You see what I'm saying? So Joseph's sons would have an Egyptian connection. You see what I'm saying? And this would be the peoples from the west side of Egypt, because they was cool with us as they invited our father Jacob into Egypt and gave him land, you know what I'm saying, gave him a house, and how we was cool with, you know, them. And then, you know, later on, after Joseph's death and so forth, and, you know, the Nubians come on, and then they enslaved us. You know, all right, Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephaniah and gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out all over the land of Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't answer Pharaoh James. Pharaoh gonna see that this the real deal, that he dealing with the real creator. His priests couldn't even do nothing with, you know, answer nothing. That, you know, he was trying to answer, you know, with his nightmares and stuff, that Egypt was finna be destroyed. Famine was coming. And he couldn't interpret his dreams, but Joseph did. All right. And we know that Joseph was in prison for wrongly being charged with trying to sleep with the dude that helped him get on his feet and showed him some love and gave him charge of everything. And how that Hamite woman tried to accuse Joseph of rape, and how he was thrown into prison, and then how he told them two dudes that, you know, what was going to happen to them. One was going to get his head cut off, and the other one was going to be able to serve Pharaoh. And then how that dude told Pharaoh, hey man, it's a dude that told us everything that was going to happen to us. And then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and Joseph come out, and then he told Pharaoh what time it was. It's all about the work of the creator. You see what I'm saying? The creator was doing this. All right, so, and unto Joseph were born two sons before the year of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for Yah had made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for Yah had caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. You know what I'm saying? So we know that we got two tribes that got some Egyptians lineage. You know, that's Joseph's two sons. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, and then we know that when Joseph, we know that when Joseph come out, you know what I'm saying, and brung his daddy there, that, you know what I'm saying, it was no problem. No problem. You know what I'm saying? And how, you know what I'm saying, I'm going to show this. All right. Let me see. All right. Then Joseph came and told Pharaoh and said, my father and his brethren, my father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen. And he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, what is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, thy servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers. You know what I'm saying? So they said moreover unto Pharaoh, for we sojourn in the land, and are we come, for thy servants have no pasture, and their flocks for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Gershon. And Pharaoh spake unto Joseph, saying, thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee, the land of Egypt is before thee. In the best of the land make thee father and brethren to dwell in the land of Gershon. Let them dwell, and if there knowest any man of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. You know what I'm saying? And look, our father Jacob even blessed Pharaoh. So we know that that myth about that 400-year bondage in ancient Egypt is a lie, because we wasn't in bondage when we first came there, and we sojourned in Egypt 400 years. In the first part of our sojourn, we wasn't in bondage in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? And that the bondage gonna come on about 200 years later. You see what I'm saying? Under the Nubians, when they took over and didn't know nothing about Joseph and the acts that he had done. So we wasn't in bondage in Egypt no 400 years like these Jewish myths want us to think that done passed already. You see what I'm saying? All right, and Pharaoh said unto Jacob, how old art thou? And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been. Our father Jacob was telling old wicked Pharaoh, through in years, I ain't never had no evil, wicked, days. And I can't remember hardly none of them. Pharaoh couldn't say that because he been wicked all his life. He ain't never believed in the Creator. So our father Jacob was slick checking Pharaoh right there. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. 130 years have I attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers and days of their pilgrimage. And Joseph blessed Pharaoh and went out before Pharaoh. You see what I'm saying? So we know that we wasn't in bondage in Egypt no 400 years because here our father Jacob, blessing, Pharaoh and stuff. All right, so this African stock that we would have with us would cause us problems. You know what I'm saying? And they would exodus with us, after the new king come on from Upper Egypt, and then he didn't recognize Joseph or nothing that he had done for Egypt and saving them. You know what I'm saying? And then how Prophet Moses come about and then led us, out of our exodus out of Egypt. All right, check this out, Hebrews. How about some Egyptians left with us? All right. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, flocks and herds, even very much cattle. That's gonna be the Meshwesh folks from Lower Egypt. You know what I'm saying? From Lower Egypt, they gonna leave with us. And then, they was cause us trouble. They was already cattle worshippers. The people from Lower Egypt worship cattle. You know what I'm saying? They worship the cattle gods. You know what I'm saying? And then those cattle gods, Hathor is mixed up, supposed to be the eye of Ra, Ra and Atum, Ptah, them triad gods, all those gods, you know what I'm saying, is what the Lord Egyptians worship, and they kind of like held control of that worship, and how that worship come from them. You see what I'm saying? And how that they controlled, Egypt, and how we would fool with them folks, and they would mess us up. Look, there go Halepolis right there. All right, there go Halepolis. That's above Tel Yehudi. That's what they say we was when we, went into slavery. You know what I'm saying about these parts from these folks. And then this is what I'm gonna be getting into the history about Tunis. Tunis, it is gonna be the capital of the Meshwesh. Tunis is gonna be the capital of the Meshwesh tribes, and then I'm gonna show how they had a connection with the Egyptians. That the Egyptians had a connection with the Assyrians, and how the Assyrians placed the folks from here, the Setite kings, from Seti on the throne, and then how when we was driven all into Africa, how we would go into the Sahara, and then how that them devils would give us a derogatory name when they come around. You know what I'm saying? They gave us a derogatory name when we went into Africa, after during the Babylonian Wars. And the Greeks called the people in the era of Germa, they called them Germentians. Now that could have been one of the chiefs' name, but they had some people in the Sahara that come into the Sahara with Scythian chariots, with horses, and with the technology from Assyria and Persia. You know what I'm saying? They come into Africa with this technology during the Babylonian Wars, and then that they settled in the Sahara, and that they build pyramids, baby pyramids, and that how that they had identical habits as the Hebrew Israelites had, and how that they had the identical houses, and how them folks' DNA supposed to match ours today. And guess what these folks try to do in history, the Babylonian scribes? They accredit the Grammentian history with the Berbers. Now the Berbers gonna be connected to our enemies. You know what I'm saying? They had came into Turkey. These folks right here, they had came from Turkey, hit the Hittites, and how they came from Turkey and then settled. You know, they come from down here. You know what I'm saying? From right here. You know, they come from there, and then how they settled on the west coast of, you know what I'm saying, the north coast of Italy. You know what I'm saying? And then how that, you know, they would mix with some folks with them other folks, and then how they would give all the credit of every accomplishment in North Africa. They would give it to the Berbers. Just like how did they give all the history and accomplishment to the white folks and to the Jews, to the non-pigmented people and to the Jews. How every accomplishment on earth they attribute to them. Well, that's what they did with the Hebrew histories in the Sahara. They credited everything to the Grammentians. And I mean not to the Grammentians, but to the Berbers. All the history about the Grammentians, they credited to the Berbers. To the Berbers. And the Berbers, you know, can't build no pyramids. They descendants here now. They ain't built nothing. They ain't did nothing. They was just like some savages just roaming around North Africa looking for handouts and everything, and how that they are connected to our enemy genetically, and how that they cover up the whole African Egyptian history in the Sahara. They credited to the Berbers. You know what I'm saying? And I show you the Berbers ain't gonna be nothing but like some people, you know, like the hip hop culture today, how the non-pigmented peoples come to do everything we do, just like how we created rap and all that type stuff. Well, that's the same thing that the non-pigmented peoples did in the past. They do just what the folks are doing to our culture now today. You know how they are snatch whatever they want of it and do it and think that it's theirs. Well, that's what they do with the Berber history to the folks in Africa. And then how about this? The Grammentians. The Grammentis. Now, like I say, that's going to be a name. The people in Grammenti, well, what the Greeks called the Grammentians, didn't call themselves. They didn't call themselves the Grammentians. That's going to be a name that the Greeks gave them. And the Greeks say that they was black Grammentians, black slaves. And, you know, the Grammentians were robbers. And like I say, every way that we act now today, when we broke covenant, it's the same way that the Grammentians act. And the Grammentians worship the same identical religion that we left the promised land to go into Africa to worship. And like I say, these people pop up in Africa and the Sahara during the Babylonian Wars. Now, they may have been connected since the Libyans always been in the Sahara. You know what I'm saying? The Meshwesh tribes, and that how we were reuniting with them in the Sahara during the Babylonian Wars, and that would be the Grammentians that they call, and how we would, you know, snatch them Ethiopians up and sell them to the Greeks and the Romans. You know, we had contact with them folks, because them folks come in there looking for us, because them Babylonian scribes, after they took over Egypt, after the Persians were destroyed, then they would come into Africa ASAP looking for us, trying to document and see what, you know, we was doing and stuff. And, you know, they know that we create all kind of culture, and that we're going to create something real thriving if we left alone, and how they could benefit from it. And they did, you know, and they came in and did trade with us, and then they tried to subdue us, and we would tear their mouth out. We told the Romans and Greek mouth out. And then this let you know that, you know, Christianity was around during the Roman Empire all the way up to the to the Arabs come in with the Islam, you know, and how that none of the Grammatians are the people in the Sahara were ever Christianized, and how did they reject that and didn't want nothing to do with that, but how Islam was forced on them because the people who practiced Islam had a distant kinder to us, the Edomites. You see what I'm saying? It gonna be Edom's kids come into Africa with their religion, and how that they would convert some of us, and you can see some signs of that in the transatlantic slave trade, because the Grammatian Empire was broke up by the creator. He made all the water from underground. We used to bring water from out the sands from underground, and then how we made a thriving oasis in the desert, and then how the creator dried the water up, and then how we was dispersed, and then we had conflict with the Chad groups, and the Angolan groups. We had enslaved them folks, during the Roman times, and sold some of them to the Romans, because the Romans couldn't subdue us, when we was in these parts. And then, we had trade, and we would sell them folks to the Romans. And then that's why later on, when them Edomites came from Spain, them Jews come from Spain, and they would hook up with the Congo Chad group and the Angola group, who would prey on us and then send us to the dungeons, and then off to the Americas. And here we are. But I want to trace some of this back from Assyrian times all the way to now, because there's history that show that the Assyrians, dealt with the Libyans. And then I can show that the Assyrians placed the Meshwesh Libyans on the throne, and then how we would go into Africa under, doing in the book of Jeremiah, and how Necho was one of those Libyan Meshwesh kings that killed King Josiah, and then put his son Jehoiakim on the throne, took the Jehoahaz to Africa, and then placed Jehoiakim on the throne, and how we went to that religion, Amen Ra, Atum, and Ptah, under the disguise of the Queen of Heaven. She was the Eye of Ra. You know what I'm saying? Alright, so I done show how the Meshwesh folks done left with us, and then how, Moses went up, got the law, come back down, and how, he had to tie our mouth out, because we was, doing the golden calf, the Egyptian religion. Alright? And then, how we would, from go towards getting in the land, we would, with Prophet Moses would end. Prophet Moses got us out, Deuteronomy, and then he would pass away about 1406 BC. Exodus 18 to 1446 BC. You get Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and then, the book of Joshua start after Moses' death. You know what I'm saying? And then how the prophet Joshua was from the tribe of Ephraim. Now, this the thing. All the leaders of the northern kingdom, gonna be basically from the tribe of Ephraim. Every last one of them was from the tribe of Ephraim. And that, all of them was bad and no good, because, they was on that Egyptian religion when Jeroboam come out of Egypt. And then I'm going to show how some of those Meshwesh kings, lived during the time of Samuel and Saul, and King David and so forth, and how that them folks didn't try to come into our land. But during Solomon time, when Solomon married one of the Egyptian Meshwesh, because the Meshwesh had took back over Egypt, Lower Egypt, from the Nubians, and then they controlled Lower Egypt, and how Solomon would have one of the Pharaoh's daughters as a wife, and that opened the door for our downfall. And how during the next Pharaoh, because it was another one, after he had passed, it was another one come on. It was about three of them during Solomon time, three pharaohs during Solomon time, and it was the second one that when Solomon chased Jeroboam from the tribe of Ephraim into Egypt, to his relatives, that, he stayed, and then Solomon passed away, and then Jeroboam would come out of Egypt with the golden calves and will put that on us, and it will stay on us for 300 years till King Josiah cleaned it up. You know what I'm saying? But all during that time, we had relations with the Assyrians, and the Assyrians had relations with the Libyans. You see what I'm saying? All right, so let me show this here too. All right. All right, so we see this here. All right, let me turn to, let me see. All right, so we know that the Assyrians came and invaded Egypt. You know what I'm saying? Let me get some scriptures going. All right, if you go to Isaiah, gonna be chapter 19. This is in 739. Prophet Isaiah history go from 739 to 701 BC. 739 to 701 BC. All right, let's get to Prophet Isaiah, and then he gonna show that it was already said that we would be kicking it with the Assyrians, and then I'm gonna show that the Assyrians had the Libyans as, in their empire, and how that they will put the Libyans on the throne during the Babylonian wars at the beginning of it, and at the beginning before the Babylonian wars, and then how they would chase the Nubians out of Lower Egypt, and then put the Meshwesh tribes back on that the tribe of Ephraim was kin to, and how we would go into Africa being driven off the land because we said we was going to worship the Egyptian religion, and then how we went into the Sahara, and our first bad name that they would call us, like I say, it was a mixture of some other folks too. Chambers went into the Egyptian desert and disappeared. So it's gonna be a little few Persians, it's gonna be some Assyrians, it's gonna be some Egyptians, but we gonna dominate the whole Gramentian history. We're gonna dominate it, and that's gonna be our first bad name that our enemies called us, the Greeks. All right, if you go to Isaiah 19, Isaiah 19. All right. Isaiah 19, 20, 23. In that day shall there be a highway out of Egypt to Assyria, and the Assyrians shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Assyria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. In that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt, and with Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the land. And then you see that? In that day shall Israel be the third with Egypt, and with Assyria, even a blessing in the midst of the land, whom the Elohim of hope hath blessed, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, mine inheritance. You see, that's going to be the Meshwesh tribes. When the Creator said the Egyptians, my people, that's going to go back to when our father Jacob blessed the Pharaoh. You see what I'm saying? The Meshwesh folks, and then who Ephraim, Joseph will have two sons by their tribe, Ephraim and Manasseh. Well, it was those Egyptians was on the throne that we was collaborating with, because the Assyrians were being destroyed by them Scythian folks and them Babylonian folks. They was taking Assyria down. I got a history about King Midas, how history is all messed up, showing that King Midas was some old magical king. He was treacherous and dirty and low down. He went and got all the Assyria enemies together and came and destroyed them. But before then, Assyria was trying to get some help from us. You see what I'm saying? And that's what the prophet Isaiah said, that we will be united with the Assyrians. And then I can show this too, that he even said that we would come home from Assyria. So that uh, uh, Assyrian captivity is pure garbage. You know what I'm saying? And it shall come to pass in that day that the Elohim shall beat off from the channels of the rivers unto the stream of Egypt, and ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel. That was during King Josiah time, because he had come on the throne and he had stopped the Egyptian religion worship and cut off our connection with Assyria will in Egypt. You see what I'm saying? And then gave all the Hebrews a chance to come home and do right. And we had, you know what I'm saying, the Passover, and it was supposed to have been right from then on out, from King Josiah, but the Egyptians come killed him. Let me see. And it come to pass that in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown, and they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and the outcast in the land of Egypt shall worship the Elohim in the holy mountains of Jerusalem. And then, you know, that would happen during King Josiah time. You see how that's the only kingdom that Assyria didn't take over, was the tribe of Judah. You see what I'm saying? And then that come to pass, because it could only come to pass while the Assyrians were around. You see what I'm saying? So the Hebrews come back from the Assyrian captivity and what's called the Satai history. And then, like I say, the Assyrians was trying to save themselves. They was trying to save themselves because, you know, them Scythians and them white folks and got up in there, and then they was tearing Assyria mouth out. You see what I'm saying? They was tearing Assyria mouth out. So Assyria needed us, and then these are the people that they come and took to help them. You see, history is rolled up backwards, and also our history was translated by the Babylonian scribes, the people who we abandoned our history to. And I'm going to try to go and fit that in here too. All right, look, you see, in the Yah of Israel stirred up the spirit of Paul, king of Assyria, and Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them to Harbor unto the river Gozan. You know what I'm saying? That's who the Syrians needed, because they was fighting them Scythians. All right, and then when they placed the Meshwesh folks on the throne, you know what I'm saying? We would go into Africa, and then we would go into Africa during the Babylonian wars, being driven out. And how about Hebrews? We would have the same kind of houses that we had in the promised land. You know, this is the Gramentians territory. You see what I'm saying? And we would have houses like this. These are our old settlements. These people that came in that had Scythian chariots and everything, and them folks largely been staying away from there until late. They trying to reconstruct their history, and they got the same DNA as us. They did the same thing we did. You see what I'm saying? And this is where them folks lived at. And they had projects. Man, they had projects in the Sahara. Man, we had the same kind of houses and everything. You know what I'm saying? We built baby pyramids. Baby pyramids we built. And I'm going to show that. All right, them baby pyramids. All right. Yeah, baby pyramids in the Sahara. Now, when we said we build pyramids, here goes some right here. These are the ones that we built when we ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, when they called us the Gramentians, our first derogatory name by the Greeks. You know, they come in. So you know the Egyptians would have to been with us. You see what I'm saying? And that, you know, the Egyptians and the Assyrians, all them folks was, you know, in the Sahara with us. You know what I'm saying? And we even made it with some Hamites and stuff too. You know, they was Hamites. But those are the houses that they had, you know what I'm saying, in the Sahara. In the Sahara. Pyramids, you know what I'm saying? We even buried, you know, folks up under them. All these found in Lower Libya. You know what I'm saying? And they ain't never told you that they had pyramids in Lower Libya. You know what I'm saying? They ain't never tell you that they had pyramids in Lower Libya. You know what I'm saying? Ancient pyramids in Libya. You know, they ain't never tell you that they had lower pyramids in lower Libya is because that, you know, they don't want you to make no type of connections. It may be some stuff that they didn't get rid of, like they got rid of all the Israelite history connected in ancient Egypt when they took over, when the Greeks took over, and then they, you know, destroyed everything connected to the Israelites in Egypt. Well, they didn't get a chance to come all the way into the interior of Africa. It was hot back then. So some of that stuff's still there. You know, even though they've been trying to come in there fast and clean everything up, and then how they ascribe all the history that we did in Africa to the Berbers. You see what I'm saying? To the Berbers, and the Berbers ain't built nothing like that. The Berbers can't build nothing like that now today, and the Berbers still around. And they ain't built nothing like that. They can't build nothing like that, and they give all this history to them. And the Berbers ain't built nothing. You know what I'm saying? Alright, so we know that the Assyrians placed the Meshwesh, you know what I'm saying, on the throne, and then how, you know, the Creator said that we would be connected to them. All right, how about the if you go to Prophet Nun, he'll tell you that, you know, that the Libyans kicked it with the Assyrians. You know what I'm saying? All right, you see that says, art thou better than populous? No, that was situated among the rivers that had the waters round about it, whose ramp was the sea, and her walls were on the sea. Ethiopia, Egypt were her strength and infinite. Put in Libya were thy helpers. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, Libya, it's going to be Libya. Libya, it is going to be Libya. And how did they kicked it with the Assyrians? You know? And then if you go to, let me see, if you go to Hosea, that's gonna be the prophet, you know, that was telling, you know, the tribes of Ephraim to get right. He was hard on the tribe of Ephraim. If you go to Hosea 12:1, you're gonna see that the tribe of Ephraim feeded on the wind and followed after the east wind. In his daily increase lies in desolation, and they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and all is carried into Egypt. You see what I'm saying? So all is carried into Egypt from Assyria. So the Assyrians and the Egyptians and us had a connection. And we would go into Africa, and then they would call us the Gramintians. You know what I'm saying? That would be our first derogatory name. And then if you read what these devils say, you know what I'm saying? They say, all right, 200 square miles, arms say the fits and province of southwestern Libya, all right, such and such and such. Yet in the middle of it, 2,000 years ago, was an urban civilization with a written language, pyramid tombs, irrigation, agriculture, and armies of chariots with cavalry. The Gramintians, those gonna be the Hebrews that abandoned the covenant during the book of Jeremiah during the Babylonian wars, and how that they will go into Africa in the Sahara because the Egyptians, Egypt was took over by the Babylonians. You know, the Babylonians came and took Egypt over and held control of Egypt for 50 years till the Persians come, you know, got them up out of there. You know, from 588 BC all the way to about 538 BC when the Persians whooped the Egyptians and then took Egypt over. You see what I'm saying? So, but if you read the history that they got about the Gramintians now, like I say, they gonna credit everything to the Berbers, but the Berbers ain't built no pyramids, can't build none then, can't build none now. And how the Berbers are the sea peoples, you see what I'm saying, are the sea people's descendants, and they don't know how to build nothing. And all they did was really just steal and live off the other Africans and stuff. All right, but as you see, they'll give you the descriptions of the Gramintians, and they'll say that they rode around on horses, you know what I'm saying, and that they enslaved that, let me see, they talking about the horses rode around on, and that they had big old cow with horns so big that it walked backwards, and then how they hunted the Ethiopian troglodytes on 4-horse chariots. You know, how we hunted them Ethiopian Nubian stock that went up against the West African stock. You know what I'm saying? We would be that buffer, and then how we would go and attack them Ethiopians and make them get down in the sand and dig tunnels and bring water up out of there, and how we would sell some of them to the Romans. You know what I'm saying? The folks from Chad, the Chad groups, and the Sudan groups, and you know, all them folks, you know, going down that way, we would sell them and make them do some work. You know, we was already wicked and had slaves and doing folks wrong in the promised land when we come out of Egypt, how we enslaved them Canaanite tribes and put them to work. Well, we did that same thing in the Sahara to them Ethiopians and to them Africans, and that would get them mad for later on to come up against us when them Seb Hardys come down and start messing around in Africa after they done discovered the Western Hemisphere and so forth. They would come and collaborate with our enemies, and then they would pluck us up. Like I say, ain't no Hebrews went into Africa to do the covenant. You shouldn't find no Hebrew Israelites, no real Hebrew Israelites would be seen in Africa doing the covenant. You see what I'm saying? And here it is, us going into Africa in the book of Jeremiah. If you go to Jeremiah chapter 44, this is the last part. You know, we was driven out by them Scythians, you know, our enemies, Ashkenazi. You know what I'm saying? I done showed videos of how Ashkenazi is the Scythians, and how Ashkenazi is the Scythians, and how Ashkenazi was used. How Ashkenazi is the Scythians, and how that they was used to chase us up out the promised land for saying that we wanted to worship the Egyptian religion, you know, and how that they would come, you know, out of the north, you know, them tribes from the north that prophet Jeremiah went and told to get, and then they came and got us and chased us up off the land, and then they would, you know, shoot all kind of arrows and stuff at us, all kind of arrows, all kind, every kind of arrow head that you could think of, hollow points. Some that got 3 arrowheads on one, they would shoot them all at us and then make us get up off the land. And these are the places that, you know what I'm saying, them arrowheads been found, Scythian arrowheads that's only, you know, that the Scythians have. And then how that them Scythians would settle in the promised land. And you know, them Scythians, Ashkenazi, was settled in the promised land. And then how, you know, when them Hebrews would, you know, come back from the Babylonian captivity, that little 1%, how they would only live in Judah because them people were still hanging around, and how those people, you know, made up the New Testament history, and how that the Hebrews are confused thinking that the people in the New Testament are the real Hebrews, when the people in the New Testament are the people that settled in our land after we ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, that 99%, and this is why they settled it in Scythopolis. Okay, Hebrews. The Guermentian is going to be our first derogatory name, and we was driven off the land and went into Africa to kick it with them folks. And then, you know, I could show some history of those Meshwesh pharaohs kicking it with us throughout our history, like how one of them during King Hosea times, how one of the pharaohs' name was but it was Oshkan. Oshkan was a Meshwesh pharaoh, and how he tried to get him to help him against the Assyrians. Like I say, the Assyrians trying to kidnap us. We was doing all kind of stuff. But if you look here, this us going into Africa to be with them folks in the Sahara, the ones that they would call Guermentians. Let me see. Then all the men which knew that their wives had burned incense unto other gods, and all the women that stood by a great multitude, and all the people that dwelled in the land of Egypt and Pathros answered Jeremiah, saying, As for the word that thou hast spoken unto us in the name of the Elohim, we will not hearken unto thee, but we would certainly do so whatever thing go forth out of our own mouth to burn incense unto the Queen of Heaven. That's that Ptah Ra Amun God. You know what I'm saying? and drink offerings unto her, as we have done, we and our fathers, our kings, our princes in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem. For then had we plenty of food and were well, and saw no evil. But since we left off from burning incense unto the Queen of Heaven, and pouring out drink offerings unto her, we have wanted all things, and have been consumed by the sword and by famine. We got chased off the land. You know, Ashkenazi came, the Creator told the prophet Habakkuk. He told the prophet Habakkuk to call them, because we wouldn't stop doing the Egyptian religion. You know, the Egyptians had killed King Josiah. You know, King Josiah was our last chance. King Josiah was our last chance to get right. You know, King Josiah was our last chance to not be enslaved. And how that Egyptians, that the Assyrians placed on the throne would kill him and put us back on Egyptian religion, and how we were going to Africa to live, to our enslavement. And like I say, we lived in the Sahara, and our first bad name was Gramentian, and then the water supply started drying up on us, you know, and then, you know, we got dispersed and started having conflict with them other Africans, and that's what started the transatlantic slave trade. You know, we stayed in Africa, man, a good long time, you know what I'm saying, and had fun now till the Creator start bringing our destruction down, and it was time to go into punishment. But if you look at this here, this is what I want to show, how that them folks had the same kind of houses. Them folks had the same kind of houses that we had. You know what I'm saying? How that these Gramentians had the same kind of houses. You know, they say, you know, they called them robbers. Look at this. You know what I'm saying? A Gramentian is described as barely human. A black slave could be described Gramentian muck. Fox Gramentium stereotypes. You know what I'm saying? That's what them Greeks called us. You know, them Greeks gonna be hating us and start writing negative history about us starting in, because them Jews controlled Egypt, and they was Babylonian scribes. You know, our whole history was translated in Egypt. You know what I'm saying? But if you look, this is where, you know, the little cities that we had. You know what I'm saying? Those are the Gramentian cities. The buildings, you know, they done excavated, you know, and then them folks will have houses. You know, look, those are the homes, just like how the homes we got now. You know what I'm saying? Front door, some of them had back door, but you see them rooms and so forth, those gonna be like the same houses that we had in the Promised Land. Them gonna be the same houses that we had in the Promised Land. My God, sound now. Them gonna be the same houses. The same thing that the Gramentians did. Rob, steal, be promiscuous, and all that old stuff. We was the same way. We was the same way. Look, same houses. Same houses. Look, you see how the house is designed? Same house right here. That's gonna be the same house. Those are Hebrew houses of the past. And in the Promised Land, we would construct the same houses in the Sahara under the name Gramentians. Like I say, it was a fruit. The Assyrians was with us, and a few other peoples. You know, them Egyptians lived with us, and we kind of like, you know, mixed with them, and that's where we get that little Hamite bloodline from us, because we had mixed with them in the Sahara. You know what I'm saying? Under that name Gramentian. But we controlled this here. We controlled the whole Gramentian empire until it was broken up. Alright? Them will be the houses. The same as them folks' houses. Look at them houses. Same as them houses. Look, you say Gramentian house. It's the same as the houses from the folks that ran into Africa. Same kind of houses. Alright? And then these folks will tell you that the Gramentians pop up, man, around about somewhere about 600 BC. You know, they try not to give you no specific exact dates, because then you might connect them to the Hebrews that ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars. You see what I'm saying? They don't want you to make that connection. You know, it's like I be explaining in the other videos how our enemies, the Babylonian scribes, got thousands of years of writing history and constructing history and governments. You know, before we was a Hebrew Israelite nation, before Jacob was even born, the Amorites had a civilization in Babylon 2,500 years before Jacob was born. And then when we get the covenant, they had our heritage another 2,700 years, 2,741 years after we broke covenant. You know what I'm saying? And so these people been having like 5,000 years of writing history and constructing history. So they know how to, you know, as they develop in history, if they see an error that don't connect the history to them, they know how to fix that. You know, they got schools, all the schools in this world, all the colleges in the Western Hemisphere are created to keep false history going, so those Jews can keep our heritage, and then the world don't know what happened to us. But our first derogatory name after we ran into Africa, see, about 100, you know, when the Greeks start coming around, man, about 100-something years none elapsed. So, you know, and then we wasn't doing the covenant. So, you know, them folks started recording and stuff. You know, them people wasn't going to say, hey, them the Israelites that ran into Africa during the Babylonian Wars, to say that they didn't want to do the covenant, but that they want to do Egyptian religion. Our enemies wasn't going to say that in history. We can't never look for our enemies to tell the truth. You know what I'm saying? And we had brick houses just like those Grammentians did. And we did the same thing they did. And then they even had Scythian chariots. Now, what would these Grammentians in Africa, in the Sahara, get some Scythian chariots from unless they had contact with the Scythians? You know, we had horses and everything. Where would you get all that stuff unless you had some contact with them folks? And then, as I've shown, that the Egyptians were placed on the throne by the Assyrians, and that the Assyrians and the Egyptians from Lower Egypt was kin, and then the people from Lower Egypt gonna be the people, you know what I'm saying, the Grammentians, you know, that went into Africa. And like I said, they built pyramids. You know, them folks had pyramids and everything. And look, as you see, some of their kings coincide with, you know, some of our kings. You know what I'm saying? And how did, you know, you can see some of the Meshwesh kings in the Bible, like Shishonite. Shishonite gonna be the one that went and robbed Jeroboam after Jeroboam was chased into Egypt, and after when Solomon tried to get him, and then Solomon died, and then he come back out. Well, his kinfolks, Shishonite, came and robbed Jeroboam and took all the gold and everything, giving Jeroboam a good start, humiliated Jeroboam. Let me see if I can get that in. But them gonna be the Meshwesh folks, and them gonna be the folks that's controlled, that was connected to the folks in the Sahara, the Grammentians, and how that they would be kicking it with the Assyrians. But check this out. Let's see if we can show this here. All right. And Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, the Ephraite of Zerudah, Solomon's servant, whose mother name was Zur, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. And this was the cause, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he lifted up his king. And Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam. And Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt unto Shawshank. That's going to be Shishonach. And the king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. You know, that same dude would come out and rob Jeroboam. You know what I'm saying? And Shishonite gonna be, you know, one of them pharaohs. And then that's like when the Babylonians came, how we would have the Egyptians to try to help us fight the Babylonians, but that couldn't help. You know what I'm saying? It was over with. You know, we kept doing Egyptian religion. You know, we couldn't do the Egyptian religion and be on the promised land. That's why we was driven off. All right, Hebrews, I pray that this shed a little light on some of our history. I'm going to start going into the Chad and the Angola groups, how that they would get the people from the Gramentian Empire that had broken up because the water had dried up. You know, I say that was an act of the Creator. And if you look at one of the curses gonna say that no matter where you run, that the Creator, curse is gonna pursue you. And then I say that that's what happened when that water dried up on us in the Sahara. You know what I'm saying? When that water dried up, and then that made us disperse. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's see what that curse is. All right. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he command thee. So, them Gramentians, water supply dried up on them. The water supply dried up on them. We couldn't rob nobody no more. You know what I'm saying? And as you read the Gramentians' history, you're going to see that them folks kicked it with the Egyptians. That they were Egyptians and did the same thing that the Egyptians did. Built the Egyptian houses and build pyramids and everything. And how that we are the same people that mixed in with them during the Babylonian wars when we was chased out the land, and how we went into Egypt, and how we went to the people that Ephraim was kin with, and them gonna be the people in the Sahara, and how we stayed there till our enslavement came down. Alright, Hebrews, this is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood, but our first bad name was called Gramentian. This is the water system, the foggers that we would make the Ethiopians did. We would make them get down in that sand. That's why them folks hate us today. And that's one of the reasons why our enemies gave the Ethiopians part of our heritage. By them saying that they some Israelites, knowing that they come off the Yemenite Edomites that come from Yemen, right across the water from them. You see what I'm saying? That's what them Edomites. Teman is Yemen. Teman is a son of Eliphaz. Eliphaz is the son of Edom. And this is Edom inheritance, and how some of them converted to Judaism under John Heinekes in 130 BC, and how the Hamiite tribes will go into Ethiopia and rule Ethiopia, and how now some barbers mixed up with them. You see what I'm saying? The barbers mixed up with them. You know what I'm saying? And how our enemies will get them part of our heritage because of what we did to them in the Sahara. And then if you ever Ethiopians say, I ain't never been enslaved. We ain't never been enslaved. If you looked at Ethiopian in the eye and say, we enslaved you under the name Gramentian in the Sahara, if he know any history, he'll shut up. You know what I'm saying? I be doing that to the Ethiopians. They be looking at us when we go in the store, and then you get and talking history, and they say, I ain't never been enslaved. I ain't never been enslaved. That's what the Ethiopians will say. And then I'll say, yes, you have. We enslaved you under the name Gramentian, under the false name Gramentian. Because like I say, the Gramentians didn't call themselves by that. That's the name that the Greeks gave them. You know what I'm saying? And how, we would catch them Ethiopians and put them down in them water holes and make them bring some water up for us. And how that those Ethiopians were allied to the Babylonians, and how the Babylonians put them a little bit in charge of the promised land when we was driven out, and how that they have an inheritance in the promised land right now. You know what I'm saying? How the enemy done brung them in. It's a lot going on, Hebrews. Shalom. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.